Welcome to LitCast, the podcast covering GCSE literature revision and notes for WJEC. These podcasts are designed to be used as an additional revision tool. There's nothing new or groundbreaking here, just revision notes in an on-the-go friendly format. Using these alone won't guarantee you an A star, but they can help you build your confidence to apply this knowledge to your exam questions and your classwork. With that being said, let's get started. Hello and welcome back. In this episode we are going to be discussing the theme of loneliness in Of Mice and Men. Loneliness and isolation play a huge part in all of the characters' lives in Of Mice and Men. And if you think about it, even Steinbeck himself demonstrates how important the theme is by naming the nearby town Soledad, which is Spanish for loneliness or solitude. And even though that's not necessarily something that you need to include in an essay, it certainly gives you an indication as to how integral the theme of loneliness is to the story. Everyone on this ranch is lonely. The men on the ranch are like orphans. George says they got no family. And the bunkhouse guys blow their money every Saturday night on prostitutes and booze at Susie's place. They go for companionship, but that doesn't stop them from being lonely. That companionship is paid for, so it's not genuine, and it's fleeting as well. It's unusual for the ranchers to make friends. Most of the ranchers comment on how strange it is that George and Lenny travel together, and their contrast, or the fact that they have that friendship, really contrasts with the lack of relationships that the other characters have. Crooks, the stable buck, lives all alone. He's segregated from the others because of his race, and that segregation is highlighted in the way that he interacts with people. When Lenny pays him a surprise visit, Crooks doesn't seem to want his company. He's used to loneliness, and he seems to find it hard to enjoy another person's company, because he's not used to it. Curly's lonely, even though he's married. The only time you see him with his wife is when she's dead. So the absence of a character within a scene can actually play a really vital role. No one can think of an answer or a solution to loneliness, and Steinbeck offers no solution either. Even marriage doesn't stop people from being lonely in this novella. Loneliness appears to be part of human nature. It's not something that the characters can necessarily change. Lenny and George think that having their own place would solve everything, but George doesn't ever really seem to think that this will happen. Lenny and George look out for each other, but George still seems lonely. He tells Slim, "I ain't got no people," and that he and Lenny travel together just because they're used to each other. Now, in terms of George's behaviour, that sense of endearment that he often has towards Lenny may contrast with that, but equally there's several moments where he's very frustrated and he dreams of a life without Lenny. Animals seem to provide a temporary solution to the problem of loneliness, but Lenny kills all the animals he gets. Candy has his dog, until Carson shoots it. So again, there's that idea of companionship and togetherness being just a temporary, fleeting thing. In the same way that companionship and friendship is a very fleeting moment in the lives of typical ranch workers. Looking for companionship can also be dangerous. When anyone tries to grab hold of someone else, it can end in disaster. For example, Crooks and Candy's attempt to grab hold of George and Lenny's dream end in bitter disappointment for them, or Lenny holding his animals, holding the girl's skirt in weed, and holding on to Curly's wife. Curly's wife isn't happy living in her father-in-law's house. She tries to get a bit of companionship by flirting with the ranchers and talking to them, but this also ends in disaster for her. George mentions how his friend Andy Cushman is in San Quentin, which is a prison, on account of a tart. Looking for companionship was dangerous for Andy. If we were to go through each of the characters, we could see the impact that loneliness has on their lives. I suppose the easiest would be George, in that he's not that lonely during the novel as he has Lenny. However, he is still craving real, I suppose, companionship rather than that responsibility. Lenny is the only character who is innocent enough not to feel loneliness, but he's angry when Crooks suggests George won't come back to him. So he doesn't ever entertain the possibility that George won't be there. Curly's wife is married to a man she doesn't love and who doesn't love her. There are no other women on the ranch, and she has nothing to do. She tries to befriend the men by hanging around the bunkhouse simply because she wants that attention and to build that sense of relationship. When Candy's ancient ill dog was shot, Candy's got nothing left. He delayed killing the dog, even though he knew deep down it was the best thing, as he dreaded losing his long-time companion. Crooks lives in enforced solitude away from the other men. He's bitter about his enforced solitude because of his race and is thrilled when Lenny and Candy come into his room and are his companions for the night. But as we said, he didn't necessarily know how to react or interact with them when they first came in because he was so used to being on his own. So hopefully that's given you a few pointers and ideas to start planning some essays on the theme of loneliness and to consider its importance in the novella. Thank you very much for listening, and tune into the next one. You've been listening to LitCast, the podcast covering GCSE literature revision and notes for WJEC. This podcast is available to download from castbox.com, so if you're listening on YouTube, the link will be in the description below, where you can download these to listen offline on your phone and on the go. Thank you for listening, and good luck with your revision.